Arrested in the US state of Georgia after surrendering to law enforcement authorities. It's the fourth time the former president has been arrested this year, but the first time his mugshot's been taken for official records. He's accused of trying to illegally overturn the result of Georgia's vote in the 2020 presidential election.
By now a familiar sight. Trump's motorcade dropping him off to face charges. But this time is different. This court photo of Trump, along with an inmate number, is now sitting in the public records of Fulton County Jail. It's the first mugshot ever taken of a former U.S. president.
It shows that even if you have all this money and all the power and you're the most powerful person in the United States, you are not above the law and you are not above consequences. It's great.
Trump surrendered at the Atlanta jail to face charges that he illegally schemed to overturn the 2020 election result in Georgia. In a phone call, Trump had asked the Republican Secretary of State to find him votes to change the outcome. Trump said he's being prosecuted for making a, quote, perfect phone call.
When you have that great freedom to challenge, you have to be able to, otherwise you're going to have very dishonest elections. What has taken place here is a travesty of justice. We did nothing wrong. I did nothing wrong.
Instead of letting the latest spectacle damage his candidacy for the next elections, Trump is using it as a photo op. Trump made his first post since 2021 on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter, posting his own mugshot with a link to raise money for his campaign and repeating claims of election interference, which many of his Republican supporters believe.
Because this country is too important to lose. We have to have Donald Trump. It's Trump or death.
Trump was released on a $200,000 bail, with a grand total of over 90 charges across the 4 criminal cases. The ex-president faces escalating legal troubles.
So where is the Republican Party in all of this, as its biggest vote winner faces potentially mandatory jail time and dominates Republican debates even when he's not there? Well, let's pick it up with Reed Galen. He's a political strategist and co-founder of the Lincoln Project, a Republican political action committee, which was set up in 2019 to oppose Donald Trump's re-election. Welcome to DW. Would it be fair to say that with every set of criminal charges the former president faces, that his support and his grip on your party grows?
I would say that you're absolutely right about that. He has never been more popular since the 2020 election than he is right now with Republican voters. If you look at the recent survey work that comes out here in America, more than 60% of Republican voters nationally want him to be the Republican nominee next year. And every time he is indicted, has his mugshot taken, as you just ran a story there, the people behind him become even more secure that he is the person they want.
So your party was critical of him after the lackluster Republican performances in the 2022 midterms. So how have you gone from that to your current apparent supineness?
Well, I would say this. I'm no longer a Republican, so I do everything I can every day to make sure Donald Trump is never the president again. But what I would say is this is it is a relationship with Republican voters, but really more importantly, Republican politicians that is based in fear. They are afraid of him saying bad things about him, them. They are afraid of him saying that his voters should not vote for them. Look, there was a recent survey here in the U.S. that said if Donald Trump was not the Republican nominee, some 28 million Republican voters would stay home. And so that would mean that not only would Trump not win, but no Republican candidate would win. And let's be clear about this. What the Republican Party and its leaders were upset about last year was not the fact that he tried to overthrow a free and fair election or any of the things he said and done since he came on the American political stage, but that he cost them power, that the people he had chosen in his actions cost them seats in our U.S. House and our U.S. Senate. And so they are still in the same relationship where it's very hard for them to win with him on the ballot, and it's impossible for them to win without him.
And is he an active leader of your party? Does he attend committees and do all the boring political stuff? Or is he just this big figure within the party and leave those details to someone else? I'm trying to get an idea of how active he is there.
Yeah, look, for him, the Republican Party is a means to an end. For him, it was the means to really be more popular than he was, to be more in the limelight than he was in 2016. Remember that he did not expect to win that election. He did not expect to be president. And then once he lost, he wanted to do everything he could to maintain his power. What I would say now is that he maintains authority over all of our different state Republican parties, our local Republican parties, but he doesn't do a lot of the dirty work. He has people that do that for him.
So this week we saw the first debate among potential Republican presidential candidates, and Trump chose not to attend and still dominated the event. How can non-Trump Republicans break through when the Trump circus is so dominant?
Well, at this point, I don't even know that that's possible. If you look at Donald Trump's support, along with Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, who's second, and then Vivek Ramaswamy, a young business person, they have about 85% of the vote between them, and they are all very aligned in a worldview, in policies, in the way that they would govern, that they say that they'd want to govern, the way they see about American foreign policy. And that leaves about 15% of Republican voters for anybody else. And so at this point, I would say it's almost impossible that Donald Trump, should he want the nomination, wouldn't get it next year.
So is that now the Republican model? Has Donald Trump so changed that party that only the most rabid, anti-gay, anti-minority, woke warrior can stand any chance of success in the Republican Party?
I would say in most places, yes. Now, there might be some states, there might be some legislative districts in which that's not the case. But I would say this, is that Donald Trump and his belief system and what he has done has seeped down into states, into localities, into different party structures. It would be very difficult for someone who opposed him or who did not go along with the things he says and does to get elected.
So, in effect, he has radicalized the Republican Party.
Well, let me say this. I think that there were radical elements of it. I think that there were people in this country who were not involved politically that came to the Republican Party when he appeared on the scene. And so I think that this was a situation in which a lot of opportunity met preparation. There were people who were very, very conservative. Someone like Trump, remember, he's not really what we would consider a conservative. He's not really what we would even have considered a Republican before he decided to run for the Republican Party nomination. But he has turned the party into his vehicle. It now belongs to him, and it will be his as long as he wants it.
So can you see any way the Republicans won't choose him as its next presidential candidate, regardless of all this criminal activity and legal activity around him?
I mean, short of him deciding he doesn't want to be the nominee or some exigent outside event, health problem or something like that, hard for me to see how he's not the Republican presidential nominee in 2024.
Fascinating. Thank you so much for joining us.